Palak Patel, who oversaw the studio's Spider-Man villain spin-off movies, has left Sony Pictures. He also served as the studio's point man on Tom Holland's Spider-Man trilogy. Breaking news from HollywoodReporter.com. This has been a lot for Sony Pictures. It's been a lot ever since the debut of Venom. But let's be honest, we kind of expected that this was going to go down. All of this was, in a way, a recipe that was doomed for disaster. And yet, I look at it and I think to myself, I can't be mad at them for doing something new. What is the role of an executive producer? Well, in most cases, there are times where they're there for the financing. But in Mr. Patel's case, he pretty much saw or had some kind of hand on the creative team. Whether that was managing production or finding talent hunting. Maybe maintaining a brand identity, like keeping the IP rights for Spider-Man. I'm sure he's not the only one, but I'm sure he had a slight hand to that. Maybe even developing concepts for the stories to take place. We'll never really know because none of us are there and we can only speculate what goes on behind the scenes. But the thing is, when you have movies in a cinematic universe that are flop after flop after flop after flop, something is going to go down. That's just the reality. Now, as I said, I can't be mad over the studio for doing something a little different. They had to be different from the MCU, and they had to be different from DC Comics. And they believed, the creatives behind the scenes, including him, whether he was involved in or not, the studios, the executives, they believed that they can focus on individual storylines to focus on the villains of Spider-Man without including Spider-Man in it. They took a shot many times, and it didn't work well for them. If you truly think about it, how can you tell us, the audience, the fans, how can you tell us what we want to see when your cash cow, who you were never restricted from using Spider-Man. That was a rumor, it was an old tale. They were never restricted from using the web-slinging, wall-crawling, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. They were never restricted to using that character in any of their movies. And we were begging, we were pleading for the crossovers to take effect. We were begging for at least Venom or Spider-Man to come together. We were begging for the Sinister Six, or maybe that was their vision the entire time. We were begging for something to happen that was going to go, oh, yes, awesome, keep doing what you're doing. You lost the trust of the people. You lost our trust, you lost our faith. And I can understand not all of it was Sony Pictures' fault. I even said this before on a Madam Web video last year. Whenever you think of superhero content, you think of one major brand because they are the ones that have the majority of the market share. In this case, it's the MCU, Disney Marvel. And ever since post-Endgame, and things have been going straight down from there, not all of it, we had a few gems here and there in between. But whenever you think about superhero content, you think about Marvel in general as a whole. And once you lose the trust of the people, they don't see your films anymore. They lose faith, they lose trust. You break their hearts time and time again. I, as a hardcore fan, near hardcore, and many others, just hoping and holding on to that breath of life that maybe after the last flop, something can turn around. Maybe after the dumpster fire of losing millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, that they can turn around and give us maybe not an apology tour, maybe not a home run, but something different, something awesome. Marvel has done it with Deadpool and Wolverine. If you remember, with the Marvels, the director Nia DaCosta, and I don't apologize for bringing this up. I know we're going to talk about this until we're blue in the face, and a lot of us are probably blue in the face. But just hear me out on this one a little bit. When Nia DaCosta directed the Marvels, and according to the CEO, I believe it was Bob Iger, during the time, the movie was not under supervision, according to the CEO himself, placing all the blame on the director, or most of the blame. And Nia DaCosta actually placed the blame on us, the fans, calling us incels, calling us racist, misogynist, whatever negative term there was when it came to us men. Even though the majority of men, the majority of the fandom when it comes to superhero content has been, is, and will always be males. And when we came to see that movie, she instantly blamed us. Why is that? I said before in a video where, again, this was all speculation. Not all of us truly know what goes behind the scenes, but just imagine you are in charge of a $200, $300, $400, $500 million movie, and then it fails. So of course your bosses, your studios are up, they're hovering above you, and they're demanding to know answers. Why didn't this movie do well? Why did you lose us on hundreds of millions of dollars? What happened? And of course, they could always be honest. It was my fault. I take full responsibility. I tried to do something new. I tried to write something new because she did co-write the script. I tried to do something new. I tried to do something innovative. This was a movie starring women, by women, for women. I take full responsibility. It will never happen again. And of course, your bosses are going to look at this and only hear what they want to hear. The bosses that has nothing to do with filmmaking, that has nothing to do with writing, that has nothing to do with storytelling. All they care about is the money. All they care about is what is the next profit. Most of the time. And if the only thing they hear is it's my fault that I'm the one that lost you hundreds of millions of dollars, they're going to come around and say, okay, you lost this money. Guess what? You are fired and you were never heard from again. Now, obviously, there's so much that goes into that. And like I said, this is purely speculation. But the fact of the matter is, almost every business, when it comes to production, almost, not all the time, almost, in a way, operates like that. There's always going to be that shark. There's always going to be that one guy or a slew of guys, a slew of people that are going to know what happened to the potential profit that they are supposed to make. This is no different. And if it takes a studio, an executive producer like Mr. Patel to exit the Sony Pictures after flop from this, what does that tell you? Now, maybe he did have something to do with it, or maybe he tried his very best. Maybe he truly believed that with what he could do that's new, that's different, could appease to the masses. But if you have not figured out at the time where you're losing money and you continue to make flop after flop, if you have not gotten it at that time, maybe it is time for you to go. Or in this case, maybe it's time for you to get fired. So what can you learn from this? The numbers never lie. And sometimes you have to look at everything from a different perspective. You have to get yourself out of your own way. Look at the data. Look at your numbers. Look at what's working. Look at what's not. Someone had to go. And it had to be him.